So, hello and welcome to today's live. Slightly earlier than the usual ones I've been doing on Sundays. Usually start at 5 o'clock in the afternoon London time, where I've been talking to Ukrainian teachers of English about how the war's affected them and their teaching. Today I'm doing something slightly different. I'm going to be talking to a teacher called Jack Falconer, who's based in Taipei, Taiwan. And I'm hoping he's going to pop up in a minute on my screen so I can see him and get him to join. Hi Jack, I see that you've just joined. I think you have to ask to join the live, or maybe I can ask you to join the live. Let me see. God, I'm so useless at this. I think you have to ask to join, Jack. I don't know if you can see how to do that. I've done hundreds of these and I still haven't worked out how to do them. Ah, look, there you are. To us. Let's see. Oh, maybe I pressed the wrong button. Let's try again. I know that Jack's very kindly agreed to join, even though it's 10 o'clock at night over there in Taipei. I think we have...
Yeah.
Hey, Jack. I was going to say I could see
Hi.
peculiar
You can see
your bedroom.
the other side. Yeah, that's where I am at the moment.
Okay. Did you manage to get?
Yeah, I'd like to sit in the. Yeah, I just got the kid to bed.
Okay.
So if I sit in the living room, he'll hear my voice and he'll probably keep coming out and disturbing me. So I've got to sit in the bedroom here. Can you hear me okay? Does that sound all right?
I hear you fine. You may also hear the noise of my son in the room next door playing Dungeons and Dragons with his mates.
Nice.
Stranger Things. Painful.
Is that a noisy activity? Dungeons and Dragons?
Noisier than you'd imagine. They get quite heated and have arguments about zombies and things. I don't really understand what they're doing, but they seem quite engaged, involved in it. So hey, hello.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Hi. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm good. Just before I kind of get started, just to finish my introduction, I found out about Jack because I'm involved with a thing called the TEFL Workers Union here in the UK, which is really the first kind of organised trade union to represent English language teaching people in the UK. And they do some really amazing work. And I went along to a recent kind of, I don't know, like a kind of drive to get more people to join the union. And as part of the evening, we were shown a video featuring Jack talking about the work he's been doing in Taiwan. And I found it really inspiring. And so I reached out to him, and that's why I decided to invite him along. Do you mind, Jack, if I...
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Sorry, go on.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, thank you for agreeing
Pleasure.
to be with us at such a ridiculous time of the evening, your end. Do you mind if I sort of rewind a little bit to begin with and just ask a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're from, all that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm English, and I was originally born in Oxford, which is where my parents met, but then they moved to London when I was pretty young, about 5 years old. So I grew up mostly in North London, although I kind of moved around a little bit when I was a kid, sort of west, east, and north.
Oh, north.
What part of the
Yeah.
north? Well, it was more north central, so it's closer to close to King's Cross.
Okay.
Which is where I grew up.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I went to school in North London near Chalk Farm, at a place called Haverstock.
I know it well.
I'm not sure if you know that.
Yeah.
You know Haverstock?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry if the screen might be moving around a bit here because I'm kind of sitting on the bed, so it's slightly awkward. Yeah, and so then I went to Sussex University back in the year like 2000, I think it was, and then so I did psychology there. And then after that, I went back to London for a couple of years. I worked for Edexcel. That's the examinations board.
Okay.
That's kind of run by Pearson.
Psychology graduate.
Oh, it's just like one of those kind of straight out of uni kind of first job thing, like save a bit of money. And I did. I went to Golders Green Teacher Training College to do a, a TESOL cert, Trinity cert TESOL.
What, what,
Um,
what led
and
you into
yeah.
going down the English language teaching route?
I think it was actually while I was at university, and I was thinking, I just had the feeling I wanted to kind of explore the world a little bit at that point, and I wanted to get out of England. Really, I was feeling a bit kind of bored, just having been in England all
Yeah,
my life, and so I was kind of thinking about how I could do that, and that was just seemed to be the best way.
you know.
Yeah,
Hello, sounds very familiar to me. It's I think a lot of
yeah,
natives kind of drift in through that sort of itchy feet route.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I did kind of try to go into, for a little while, a bit of kind of working like mental health work, helping people with, or working with someone with schizophrenia. And it was quite challenging and difficult. And I don't know, I think maybe that wasn't my true passion. I was just interested in psychology, but I wasn't sort of keen to go into the world of, you know, mental health work,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. I mean, it
Mm,
can be very. I know I've got friends who work in mental health in London, and I know it's
mm,
very, very demanding and draining, and you're dealing with a lot of bureaucracy
yeah.
often letting you down and funding issues that aren't as you'd like them to be and all of that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you found,
Um,
sorry,
yeah, go on. Well, I really enjoyed growing up in London, and I loved my school. Haverstock is a pretty good place. It was a nice place to grow up, I thought.
and have you found that the psychology degree helps you with the teaching?
Um, I'm not quite sure. I mean, it was social psychology, and so I did look at kind of group psychology and things like that. I think there may be kind of an element of it, but I haven't really um, made any kind of concrete connections between that and teaching.
And so then you got into teaching, and was Taiwan the first place that you went to work, or were you working
Yeah, yeah,
before?
yeah. It was the very first place that I went to work. So I left. I had to save up some money to pay off some student loan
Yeah,
debt. So I just worked for a couple of years, and then the Golders Green Teacher Training College put us in contact with this agency called Saxon
yeah,
Court, and they, I went and spoke to some agent, and I was talking about, oh, possibly Japan or maybe Korea. I was thinking somewhere in East Asia, and they were like, well, have you thought about Taiwan? And I was like, well, not really. But in the end, a friend of mine came to Taiwan first, and so Taiwan came highly recommended by quite a lot of
oh,
people. Um, yeah,
and when
so
did you
that's
on? What was the year?
2005.
Okay,
So it's
well,
almost 19 years ago. Yeah.
getting towards your 20-year mark now, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a long time.
Were you always working for the British Council, or?
No, no. I worked for a couple of local English language schools for about a total of 4 years before I joined the
Oh,
British Council.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So
And
I was Yeah,
no,
go
go on,
on.
go on, go on. Sorry.
Oh well, I was just teaching like kids. Uh, the first job was arranged before I even came to Taiwan with a company called
Yeah,
Shane. Um, and then that one was not so great. And then I found a pretty decent and small school that I worked for about 3 years. They were quite nice, but then I got the job at the British Council after that.
and what's the English language market like in Taiwan? I mean, has it changed during the
Mm.
time you've been there, or?
Um, I don't think the market has changed that much. I would say it's quite like a big market for the size of the country. So there's about like 23 million people here. And this city is quite big. I mean, if you think about all the surrounding area and everything, there's about like 6 or 7 million people, and um, and it's just very common that parents want to send their kids um, to any kind of after school. They call them
Yeah.
cram schools, and but the word is bushy ban. They call it here, and we don't. Cram school is not a good direct translation of bushy ban because it's not just cramming for exams. It's all year, every year, all the time.
It sounds quite sort of high pressured and stressful.
Yeah, yeah. It is, and it's really tough for a lot of those kids. It's not very nice for them to finish. They start school at maybe like 8 in the morning, and then they finish at like 5, and then or something like that. It varies a bit, and then they often head straight to a cram school, and sometimes they're there till like 9
Yeah.
at night. Yeah,
You're
so
getting
it's basically
quite tired and already a bit kind of frazzled, yeah?
yeah, yeah. But it varies a lot between age groups and things.
Yeah. And so you then started working at the council.
Yeah,
And I mean, I guess to a lot of people who might be watching, they might be surprised to learn that teachers in the British Council are thinking about going on strike, because obviously the British Council has this kind of aura about it, or a reputation about it, as being, you know, one of the sort of high class providers and the sort of top end of the English language market,
yeah.
which, you know, it may well be, but there's
Mm.
obviously a kind of lying issues that lead people to end up choosing to go on strike and stuff. So maybe you could just talk us through a little bit about how you came to a point where you ended up being involved in all of this stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I was working there for a long time, like 2005. There's, I wasn't really getting involved much in any kind of internal office politics for many years, and I was fairly happy with everything actually for quite a number of years. Um, but it was kind of strange that nothing ever seemed to change. Um, yeah, I had my own kind of reasons for not getting involved because I had some things going on with my family life and everything in the past. And then I found myself in a sort of position where I had a bit more kind of time and energy to get involved. And there's something called the Teachers Association, which is arranged by the British Council.
Okay.
Um, and people had taken their turns doing this. Everyone, all the long-term full-time teachers like me had all done it, and I just had never done it. And so I put myself forward for it for the first time last year in
This
May. And so then
council centre does, or
yeah, every British council has a teachers association,
okay,
I think. Yeah, but it's not something that has any teeth, no real power. Yeah, it almost feels like they the company might use having a teachers association to help deal with kind of internal kind of problems or grievances, and perhaps teachers might feel that they don't necessarily need a union because there's a teachers association, but it doesn't have any actual power.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, so it had over the years, um, it hadn't done that much. I think it was back in sort of like 2000, back in around like 2011 or something. I think they'd gotten like a little bit done in terms of like getting us like a 4-day work week rather than 5, um, something like that. That was quite a big improvement. But then management um, changed some of those things for new teachers coming in. So now there's only a handful of us left that are still on these older contracts and things like that.
a staffing thing where people who arrived before a certain date get 4-day weeks, and people coming in get 5-day weeks.
Um, yeah, something like that. Or actually, it's more about the nowadays. It's more about the days that we work, because a lot of the new teachers have to work both Saturday and Sunday.
Wow.
Both,
Okay.
yeah. Whereas the ones on older contracts like me don't
Okay.
have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things like that. But anyway, so I started doing it, and I had my kind of first big meeting with the, senior management, and I went in there. Basically I did a survey of all the teachers. What's the big issues that you'd like us to bring up and raise? And they all just said like pay, pay, pay. We haven't had a pay rise for almost 20 years. And I was like, okay. And the Saturday Sunday thing as well was a big one coming up. Um, Along with some other things like hourly paid teachers aren't getting any sick leave pay, and they're not getting proper annual leave pay and things like this.
Did you know about this?
Um,
You took up the position, or?
um, I would say like I hadn't really thought about it that
Yeah.
much, to be honest. Yeah, I was kind of aware of some of these
Yeah.
things, but it just been I'd just been doing my job, just going into the office, getting the work done,
Yeah.
and going home,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and just not getting involved much, not thinking about it. So I had this first meeting, and I was kind of a bit shocked actually by the sort of management response, because it seemed like they'd been over all these issues with these teachers association reps over like many times over many years, and they had. I was just a bit I was almost like blown away, like it just slightly sort of gobsmacked, just like how the excuses and the reasoning for it just didn't seem to add up to me. And when I kind of pushed back and challenged, I just wasn't satisfied with the responses that I was getting. So I left that first meeting, and I just immediately just went home and started like Googling, you know, British council unions, British council strikes, British, or teachers. Um, just googling and trying to research and look into it, and so I started kind of doing work behind the
The
scenes
way that the
at that point.
associations are set up puts whoever's in charge of the association in a very tricky position as well. Yeah, because you're
Mm,
essentially the head of an association which doesn't technically have any power, and you're used as a kind of buffer or a go-between the management and the teachers, and so you
yeah,
know frustrations of the teachers, and you know about all the the kind of fluff you're getting from management, and you're having to kind of relay those two things without being in a position to really effect any meaningful change. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah. That's exactly what it felt like.
being
Sorry, say that again.
it's a lousy position to find yourself in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was a bit. Yes.
And
Um, mm.
what led you to start thinking about the union stuff? I mean, do you come from any kind of union background, or had you been a union member before, or say unions in your family?
um, yeah. I mean, I'd never been a union member, because I'd never worked for an institution that really had a big union or anything. Um, but my mum used to work for Unison,
Okay.
which was one of I think it was the biggest union at that
Yeah.
time, or still is. Actually, I'm not quite sure. In the UK, that is. She used to write for the Unison magazine, so she was a kind of journalist, but working for the union itself. Yeah, and she used to work for this paper called the Morning Star
Okay.
before that,
Yeah.
which is like a left-wing newspaper
Yeah.
based out of London.
Yeah.
And that's why I spent a lot of time in that area where all the newspapers used to be based in Fleet Street in the 1980s.
King's Cross and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because it's all kind of near there. I
Yeah.
think she used to work around Farringdon
Yeah.
as well for quite a time, and the Unison building was near Euston Station as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Look, I
yeah, yeah.
of that idea was sort of somewhere in your head when you sat down to Google, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just came out of that first meeting thinking like, well, I haven't done this yet, but now it's my responsibility, and the teachers are telling me these issues and they're telling me their problems.
And
And so now it is actually my job to do what's right for these teachers. And the only way to get any positive results now, it seems to me, would be to form a union. And some of the teachers were actually saying we need a union
yeah,
at that point.
and you said there'd been like a pay freeze for like 20 years or something.
Yeah, 20 year pay freeze because the council was established in 2004 in Taiwan, and they set up a 10-point pay scale for full-time teachers. Um, and management would argue that that pay scale means that that's evidence that there has been no pay freeze, but the pay scale point one today is the same as it was in 2004, and point 10 is the same as it was in 2004. So when you start that job, you think, okay, with my experience and qualifications, each year I'll move up 1 point on the pay scale, and it's about my experience and qualifications. But then all that has just been erased by inflation
Yeah.
in that
What's the,
period.
what was how high is inflation?
Well, from that time, 2004 till now, 25%
Jesus. So
inflation.
it's a
Not, mm,
pay cut.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not including interest as well, which would add to it.
Yeah. So yeah.
So that was the thing, and that was starting to kind of niggle at me a little bit, because we would get kind of promises and things like in 2016 there was a big pay review, and we were told that they were looking into it, and there was a big chance now that we'll get something, but then the pay review came and went, and they decided that the review said no.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, what did you find out when you started Googling about British Council unions, British Council strikes, all that?
Um, so I saw that there was there was discontent in the kind of wider British Council, and I saw that there'd been recently a strike in Japan, and that they had a union, and that's like on our doorstep. Basically, we're only about uh, 70 kilometers or something,
Yeah.
something ridiculously close to like the nearest Japanese island.
Yeah.
Um, and I also saw there'd been a strike in Portugal last year in 2022, I think. No, in 2023. So at the time, it was like there was just been a strike like last month at that time, and then I saw that there had been a strike in the UK as well in 2022.
Yeah.
All the British council workers there, and Portugal and the UK had both won like pay rises. Yes. So when I saw that, I thought like I should try and get in contact with some of these people if I can to sort of find out what's going on. And that's not that easy, actually. So I contacted, I sent out quite a few emails to different people, and Tom at the TEFL Union, who I
Yeah.
believe you know,
Yeah. Too.
Tom Leibowitz, yeah.
Too.
He was the first one to get back to me, and he was really good, and he set up um, a WhatsApp call, and we spoke, and then he helped me make some contacts. And at that time, I still wasn't certain we were going to set up a union,
Yeah.
or join, whether we were going to form our own or join an established one, or even if we might be able to take some kind of industrial action without even joining a union.
Yeah.
But all the advice I started getting was it'll just be impossible unless you're actually in a trade union,
Sorry. One
and
sec.
you should probably look.
Okay. Huh? Who is it? Jean? Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
God. Um. Yeah. So, how did you then decide the next sort of path of action, or the next step you were going to make?
Let's see. Um, So I let's think. Um, so I had to do a couple of things, which was I had to find a good trade union for us to join,
Yeah.
and that wasn't very easy at all. Because I think you said that in London there's only one trade union for
Def-
ESL
and
teachers,
very,
TEFL workers,
yeah.
but in Taiwan there are none.
Hmm.
Yeah, and like in Taiwan, the number of companies that go on strike averages less than one per year.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, so strikes are very rare here. There's a teachers union, a large teachers union, but they only accept, state school
Yeah.
teachers. And teachers in general, whether they're university staff like professors or normal teachers in state schools, they don't have the right to go on strike.
Wow.
They're seen as,
Wow.
yeah, they're treated like police or firefighters in that sense.
Services, basically, yeah.
Yeah, essential services, which is bizarre. Even the military have the right to go on strike here, but not teachers.
The military can go on strike, but teachers can't.
Yeah, I know, it's weird, isn't it?
Okay.
That's how much they value education, I suppose.
That's a positive way of looking at it. And so, how
Yeah.
did the union that you decided was a fit for you?
Well, because there didn't seem to be a union for us, I had to call like lots and lots of different unions and just keep asking and searching. And then in the end, the Confederated Union, which is the biggest one in Taiwan, someone there recommended that I get in touch with a smaller one called the Taiwan Higher Education
Okay.
Union. Um, and I didn't think they were a fit for us because I thought that they were only for university staff, like professors, which they have been until now. Um, and when I spoke to them, they said they had to actually look at their own constitution to decide if we would even be kind of eligible to join. And then they said that yes, it states in their constitution that anyone working in the field of education can join them, and that includes us. And then we're not subject to these limits about striking because we work for the cram school, the Bushy Ban, which is just a sort of considered a separate private type institution. So we do have the right to strike, but no one's ever done it before.
And were you having to do all of the negotiations in what's the main thing you speak? Do you speak, is it Mandarin, or do you speak, is it Hakka dialect, or what do you speak
It's
in Thai?
it's Mandarin is that they speak here,
But
yeah. Um, I mean, they have some other dialects, but they're generally speaking Mandarin. But no, I had to do all this in English because my Mandarin isn't really strong enough to manage that.
okay, I
Yeah.
was going to say it's just
Um,
a thing to do
mm,
for a language.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, I got in contact with them and set up a meeting, and I went in there with another guy who was also a teacher's rep called Travis, and they just seemed really great. So we just quickly joined up, just the two of us, and then it was a very big push to try and get people to join. Um, we needed to have a minimum of half of the teachers join before we could even enter collective bargaining.
Yeah. And how was
So
the process approaching people and persuading people and
um, yeah, so I think that the first thing that I tried to do was we needed a kind of a win or something behind us to show people like what we can do and what we've done. And that's when we, after some kind of research and looking at the contracts, going over contracts carefully, and then checking with the union about the law, we found out that actually the British Council was breaking the law um, regarding the hourly paid teachers. 60% of our teachers are hourly paid,
yeah.
um, and they were not getting sick leave pay, and they were not getting a proper annual leave either. And then when we saw the law, we realized, like, Jesus, they should be they should be getting like they should be getting like 5 times more roughly annual leave than they have been getting, and they haven't been getting any sick leave pay. They're meant to get half, a minimum of half pay for sick leave, and in all these 20 years, they hadn't been
it
getting it.
it always boggles my
Yeah,
mind what employers get away with until they're challenged on things,
yeah. And so then we took that, and then we sort of fought for that, and we kind of proved that that was correct. And then we were like, right, we've got this win now, and that we could. It's quite persuasive to get people to join, but it was still a really big push. I had to contact like everyone basically individually several times, and just spend like a couple of months just almost on the phone like non-stop, just talking to people and explaining. And
And did
but in the end, we got like 70%.
70% in the end?
At least, I think. Yeah,
Wow.
we've got 37 out of 50 now, whatever that is.
74.
No. Yeah, yeah. So that's where we're at, I
Wow.
think.
And did you find there was resistance from some people just because they're scared of losing their jobs or that kind of thing, or not? Like, what were the reasons for people not joining?
Um, let's see. I think people tend not to be that forthcoming when they're talking about why they don't want to join. Um, but I think that we had a kind of list of demands, and so some people are not kind of happy with all of those demands, and they think that some of them might be unreasonable. So that could be a reason for not joining. It could just be the plain financial thing, in that they just say, "Oh, I don't have any savings, or I can't spare any money right now to join."
Yeah. I mean, I know.
Even though yeah, even though the benefits that we've pretty much the benefits we've already received would have covered the cost of joining like many times over already.
Well, I think it's something that people often forget as well, which is, I mean, I know when I was at university, when the union would win pay deals for people, the people who were refusing to or were reluctant to join the unions were always quite happy to take the pay deals. And it's like,
Yeah,
you don't want to be part of the kind of collective fight to get the pay deal. You just want other people to do the work so you can get the pay deal. I see.
yeah,
And I mean, I guess
yeah. Go on.
the non-union members also benefit from it, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's uh, technically you can argue or fight for only union members to receive whatever wins that you get, especially through collective bargaining, which is the official negotiations between union and management. But we don't want that or expect that, because we just think that it's better if everyone gets it.
And during this time, were you getting contacted or kickback or anything by management? Were they aware of the fact that the kind of BC was sort of being unionized?
Um, yeah, yeah, they were aware of it from day one, really. Um, and I mean, the BC's official policy is that they're welcoming of trade unions, so they can't like actively go against us. Um, there's perhaps been a little bit of pushback in terms of like whether we're allowed to discuss union issues in the staff room, for example, um, and especially now that we're kind of getting closer towards a strike situation. Um, I think they're not very happy about. There's some disagreement about what we've put out to the media, and they're saying that it's some of that is inaccurate or false, and so this is quite a kind of critical time right now.
And so, how did
Yeah.
it escalate from, say, getting 74% of the staff to join the kind of Taiwanese union? What then happened after that? What was the next step? You said
Um,
demands.
you mean like last year? Okay, so we got just over 50%, like 55 or something that time around October last year. And then we formally applied for collective bargaining, and we, sent out surveys and things, or talked to lots of members to find out what issues they want us to put forward as demands, and we came up with a list of like 7. Um, and so the main ones, the big priorities though are, we wanted a pay rise. We wanted a 25% pay rise to cover the inflation, since,
Yeah, you want to make
simple as that.
us to take, yeah.
Uh,
But I mean,
Sorry, it's kind of cutting
pay
out a little bit.
rise is basically just making sure you don't get a pay cut.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, yeah.
it's
So it was to make up for our pay
5%,
cut.
but it's just like we've lost 25% of our earnings over 20 years. Can we have them?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And that was seen as like quite outlandish. Uh, the senior management were like, "This is outrageous. How could you 25%? I mean, you must realize how extravagantly sort of ridiculous that sounds." Um, and we were like, well, no, because it's backed up by the inflation. I mean, here it is, and we present the data. But of course, we would settle for
yeah,
less than that. We're not,
yeah.
we're not in.
Well, it's
Yeah,
negotiation.
we'd yeah, yeah. But they only offered us 2.5% in the negotiation. Yeah, and the negotiations dragged on and on and on. They're very long. It started off feeling quite positive the first couple of months. It stretched longer than 6 months, right up to the end, from early October up to the end of April this year. And at the end of it, in our final meeting, we were like, "So you're still not going to improve the 2.5% offer?" And they said like, "No." So then we're like, "Okay, then collective bargaining is over then. All right, well, we don't agree to that." And then a few days or a week or two later, they were like, "We're giving everyone 3%." Um, so they've imposed a pay increase on us that we didn't agree to, and they said that this is independent of collective bargaining. We're just doing this now. 3% for all the teachers. Um, we haven't seen it yet. So as we at the end of this month, the end of June, we'll see our first like 3% increase, which they said they'll backdate to April, um, which is something. I mean, of course, I'm pleased. Like anything you get, you've got to be pleased with. But it's obviously a way to kind of head off a strike or to prevent. Yes,
Interesting.
because it's a
Offered almost immediately as soon as you say the collective bargaining's over. Yeah, and
yeah, yeah,
I learned from being in the university is there's a lot of bluff calling involved in all of this, and
yeah,
there's a lot. It's a little dance that you're playing essentially, and
yeah,
both groups are playing their cards quite close to their chest and not wanting to reveal what they might finally decide to be able to offer.
yeah, yeah.
And
Um,
through all of this, we're also getting a lot of support from the Taiwanese colleagues. Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. We want the union can include everybody, um, but I think we initially thought that we'll focus on getting uh, improvements for the teachers, and then once the Taiwanese colleagues see, we're getting wins, then they'll come on board
yeah.
too. But that started happening. That started happening already. So we've already seen some improvements for the non-teaching staff, and some of the teachers are
Yeah,
Taiwanese as well.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
The wider union as a whole was also providing support during all this time. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, the Taiwan Higher Education Union has been like absolutely massively like just working tirelessly like, on our side, um, dedicating huge amounts of time and effort setting up press conferences. The one we had just a few days ago on Wednesday was really quite big. It was like an outdoor press conference right outside the main teaching center office, so like almost blocking the entrance. And we had about 60 people or so
This is
there, and a lot of them. Sorry.
the one you sent me pictures of, the ones I shared this morning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's right. Yeah, it was Wednesday, and like we had all these people there, and loads of other unions came down. So we had like the teachers union, there was the pilots union, and others came along, and they were saying that this is actually a historic moment for Taiwan because there's never been a teachers' strike before in Taiwan, so this would be the first. And they're upset about the fact that teachers don't have the right to strike in
yeah.
Taiwan, apart from us, obviously, these types of
I
teachers.
guess it also gives them a bit more leverage to pursue their own kinds of demands for change on that front as well. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah,
Um, and because the strikes are in Taiwan are very few and far between, um, that they come out to support each other if something's happening.
yeah.
And something's happening. But we haven't voted to strike. We haven't decided to strike just yet. We've had to set up the strike vote. The official vote starts on Tuesday.
Okay,
In 2 days. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So if you're interested to find out the result,
I'm gonna
you
say,
can ask me
God,
on.
it's like leaving us on a cliffhanger here.
You can find out on the 20th because
Keep us
we need 10 days, 10 days to let people vote.
okay. So keep us posted and let us know what happens with that. And it's
Yeah, well,
run and run.
yeah, yeah. I think like either way, I mean, we'll keep working at it. Um, we'll try to. We want to encourage or help other British councils around the world to form unions if they haven't got one already, or to help other teachers' associations to be a bit more effective.
I was going to ask
Things
how
like that.
it worked or how interconnected are BC teaching centres around the world. Are they quite kind of isolated?
I'd say, yeah. I mean, that was my impression that it felt that they were surprisingly isolated when I started doing this. So that was one of the things we really tried to do, actually, just try to kind of join up the thinking a
Yeah.
bit. Because I mean, it's all the one company. It's the same company. We're just in different countries. So I'm not sure why we need to all be considered separate entities.
Presumably, if this is happening to you in your context, similar things could well be happening to other people in similar contexts in other countries. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are some countries where with British Council where it's all hourly paid teachers and there are no full time ones, which is not so great. Or there are countries that have like much worse inflation than Taiwan and real crises of financial crises going on, cost of housing doubling
Yeah.
in a short space of time, and things like that. And people are just left with no option but to just leave,
Yeah.
basically, unless they're independently wealthy.
I mean, I think it's the flip side of what you're saying about management looking at you like you're crazy for demanding a 25% pay rise. If you actually went to a group of workers and said, listen, guys, over the next sort of 10, 15 years, the plan is we're going to pay you a quarter less. Does that sound okay? People would regard that as insane. Like, you know, we're struggling as it is here, and we've got this kind of rising cost of living, and you're asking us to take less money. Why would we agree to this? And I think
Yeah,
you only ever see it being presented as insane from management's point of view, who always claim there's no money, but the workers are expected to kind of absorb the brunt of all of that, and it just seems massively unfair, you know.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's not like the profits of the British Council in Taiwan have gone down in that time. In fact, the profits have massively increased. Because some time ago when we were newly established, I think we were in a little bit of a deficit for a time, or it kind of wavered between sometimes profit, sometimes deficit. But then at some point in well, about 8 years ago, roughly, there was a kind of big upturn. And so in the last 5 years, the average profit margin has been 34%, which is which is, I mean, could sound meaningless to some people, but that's better than 80% of Taiwanese companies
And
in general.
25%.
Sorry?
It's larger than 25%.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
And the cost of teachers, I think, was hovering somewhere around like 22%. Like that's the total cost of the teacher. So the amount of profit was way above the entire cost of the teaching staff. And I know that there are other costs as well. Obviously, there are many other costs, not just teacher costs. But it just seems that with that kind of profit, there's room for a pay rise for everybody
yeah,
involved here.
yeah.
And the profit could still be extremely healthy. I mean, what if they said, all right, instead of 34, we'll go for, I don't know, 22? That's still a healthy profit.
Yeah,
And that other, 12% gets shared
yeah,
around, or, you know.
yeah. I mean,
Mm,
it's never been made clear to me why those things aren't possible apart from greed, basically. And obviously, no one's going to admit to greed as a motivating factor. But yeah, all that
mm,
stuff shared around more equitably, obviously.
yeah.
Yeah,
And there are no shareholders at the British Council. It's kind of still owned by government. There are in the annual report um, that we saw for 2023, there were now 650 managers earning more than £60,000 per year. And in 2022, that was like 525. So it was an increase of 125 more managers earning above £60,000 per year. It's a huge, enormous number.
yeah,
Um, and so we were thinking, is that where all that profit is going? I think some of it is going into cultural work in terms of um, I'm not sure how much of our profit goes into this, but I think the government wants to, for example, set up like a tour for the Royal Opera House to go to, travel around the world or something like that. And the government don't necessarily want to invest millions of pounds in that. So the British Council is a kind of useful um, avenue,
yeah,
perhaps, yeah.
yeah,
And I don't have any specific sort of figures or examples about that, but that could be perhaps where some of that profit is
yeah,
going.
yeah. Jack, I know it's late where you are, and I know that you're probably knackered after a long week's work, and I know that you've got a little one to deal with at some point. Um, I guess just to wrap up, I mean, I think what's really interesting about your story is that you're in a situation where collectively a group of colleagues realize that you're not getting a great deal. You look around, just think about unions, you realize there aren't any, but then you reach out to the wider kind of national community and find unions that actually fit with you and work with you, and you work together, and that kind of collective struggle brings about changes for you in your workplace and your work environment. And I know there'll be lots of other
Yeah,
people in these videos in different countries, and hopefully it will inspire a few more people to think about, if you're not happy with the context you're working in, reach out, find out who your local unions are, talk to your colleagues, get organized, and you don't have to put up with conditions where you feel you're being treated unfairly.
yeah. Like, for me personally, as the kind of the chairperson of this union branch, I mean, it's a lot of work, um, but we've already, got these positive changes
Yeah,
happening. We've got annual leave for hourly paid teachers, sick leave for them. we've got a 3 or just about to get a 3% pay rise
Yeah,
and possibly more coming. So like, all right, it's a lot of work for me, but you know, it's well worth it because it's helping all my colleagues.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Mm.
hope they appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Good,
think they do.
good, good, good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just
Mm.
say, thank you for giving up your time, Jack, and thank you for the amazing work you're doing. I think it's really, really admirable what you're doing, and keep in touch and keep us posted about what happens with the strike vote and where that then goes. Yeah.
Thanks, Hugh. All right. Yeah, I'll let you know.
All right, mate.
All right.
And golf
Thanks
and maybe
very much.
one day. Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for inviting me
Well,
on. It's a pleasure to talk to
thank
you.
you, thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. Yeah. All right. Take
Oh,
care.
thanks very much. All right. Okay. You too. Bye bye.